Hi, this is Green Scene with Marianne DiMascio, and we're here at the Hanover Mall in front of the electric vehicle charging station. This show is about electric vehicles today. We have two guests from the Sierra Club who will be talking about electric cars. And I thought I'd just come over to the Hanover Mall and show you what an electric vehicle charging station looks like. We're all very used to gas stations and going to fuel. This has some similarities. You pull up, you use a charge card or a particular type of card, you grab the device and plug your car into it and stay for the number of hours you need to and put it back in and drive away. Very similar. So this charging station has been here since 2013. National Grid owns these, and you can see we're right by the street at Hanover Mall. No cars are here at the moment, but I've understood from reading a little bit about it, but it's been very popular. There are two stations here, and each of the stations have two ports for charging your car. So let's hear a little bit more about electric vehicles from our two guests today. We're in the studio now with our two guests from the Sierra Club. We have Kevin O'Brien, who's the Outreach Director for the Sierra Club of Massachusetts. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we have Emily Norton, who's the Chapter Director. So I'd like to start with both of you. You're working on electric vehicles. That's the topic today. You just saw that we were at the Hanover Mall yesterday at the charging stations. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like to start at the very beginning and talk about electric vehicles, what they are, how you charge them, what some of the costs are. But before we do that, if you could each just give an introduction of yourselves and what you do for the Sierra Club, that would be great.
Sure. So as the chapter director, I'm one of three staff for the Massachusetts Sierra Club. There's the National Sierra Club, and then each state, or at least most states, have one chapter. Some states have more than one. And we really focus on state-level issues. And our focus really from the Sierra Club nationally and here in the state, we're working a lot on climate change and clean energy. And reducing emissions from the transportation sector is critical if we're going to meet our state climate goals and national greenhouse gas reduction goals, to the extent we have any there. But in the state, we have very aggressive goals. And without addressing transportation, we're not going to meet them. And overall, we do want more people to be walking, to be taking public transit, to be biking, but we just know for our lives, a lot of people do still need to rely on a vehicle.
That's for sure. And I would say around here, Hanson and Whitman, there aren't a lot of places to walk. Whitman has a few more sidewalks than Hanson does, but it's you really need a car to get around. There's not as much public transportation either. So
right. So this is not about saying, banning cars. This is about saying, yeah, you can still use a vehicle, but this one is a lot less polluting. And even on our current energy mix, which is heavily reliant on natural gas, it is still much cleaner to use an electric vehicle versus a conventional petroleum-powered vehicle. So that's the Sierra Club's interest. I personally drive a Nissan Leaf, and I love it. I am not a car person at all. I'm not, a gadget person, but it's really fun to drive. It's very zippy. Mm-hmm. I don't miss going to the gas station. I hated, right? It's smelly, and it really has been a lot easier of a transition than I thought.
Great.
So,
okay.
Yes, for what it's worth.
Thank you. So Kevin, could you share a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, well, I'm doing a lot of what she does. She can't do it alone. So I'm the outreach organizer, so I talk a lot with our volunteers. I do a lot of outreach events, so we go into people's communities, and on the electric car side of things, we do a lot of ride and drive events where you can come and you can test drive the cars, you can learn about how to charge them and and get all your questions answered, basically, because it's still new for a lot of people,
Right, so sort of like a show and tell.
Yeah, in a way, sure.
And show and drive. Can you drive
show and
too?
drive. Oh, absolutely. That's the whole
can.
point. You get, people. Once people really sit in the cars and drive them, it's really when I think it gets internalized for them that these things are just another normal car.
Another car, just fuel it
car.
up differently.
Exactly.
Okay. And do you have some of those coming up in this neck of the woods?
We do. Well, we have one in Brookline coming up. It's going to be at the end of Brookline's Climate Week. It's hosted by a group called Climate Action Brookline. It's a big event. It's going to have a lot of different activities going on, but we're going to be in the exciting day anyway. We're going to have at least BMW is going to be there, and at least a couple other manufacturers should be there as well. So come down. It's going to be on April 2nd. I think it's at the Brookline Town Hall is where it's going to be. Mm-hmm. But you can go to brooklineclimateweek.org and get all the information there.
Okay, great. Thank
And if
you.
Hanson, Sustainable Hanson,
Green Hanson.
Green Hanson, sorry, does any sort of, if there's a fair, if there's an Earth Day event or whatever, we could certainly work together to get a ride and drive, set up here.
Oh, what a
It's
great
something we
idea.
can just do.
Okay, great, thanks. All right. So let's start at the beginning. An electric vehicle. People, I think, have a sense of what electric vehicles are, that you're not going to the gas station, you're charging them up, but there are different types. There's hybrids, there's mixes. So could you just give an overview of an electric vehicle? I'm not sure who's the best person to answer, but.
Either can, but
Yeah,
Kevin, you
I
go
guess
for
I'll
it.
take it.
Okay.
So I mean, I think hybrids are pretty common these days. People, you see the Toyota Prius, and
Right. There are a lot of
that's what
Priuses
people
around.
usually think of, I think, when they say hybrid. But almost every manufacturer has a hybrid now, which just means that sometimes it means you're driving mainly on gas, but you can operate on electricity a lot of the time. So but you're not afraid of getting stranded out on this, if you run out of battery juice, because there's a backup gasoline motor. So those are your hybrids. You have some of them recharge as you drive, and some of them actually have an external plug that you could go to a charging station, like we saw in the video, and juice up your battery, and you can get a certain amount of range before the gas kicks in. But a lot of manufacturers have full battery electric now, which means there's no gas at all. Like that's what Emily's
Okay.
Nissan Leaf is.
So
You can let her talk about her experiences on the Leaf, but they're pretty zippy.
Okay. So Emily, could you say a little bit
Yeah,
about
so
your.
my Leaf goes up to 100 miles. That's assuming not cold weather, that I don't have the heat on, that I don't have the AC running. So, the longest charge it can have. But they describe it as, say, 60 to 100 miles. But most of us don't, unless you have a particularly long commute, most of us don't drive more than 40 miles in a day when you look at the data on how much people commute. And especially if you have a two-car household, as we do in my house. We have a gasoline vehicle, and then we have my Leaf. So I take a train into Boston for work, and then it's mostly driving my kids around to their stuff at home in the Leaf. And then I charge it up every night at home in a regular plug next to we don't even have electricity in our garage, so it's just in the driveway next to the house. Just like you have an outlet might be for your holiday lights, I got
Right.
an outlet installed for the car, and I plug in the car every night. So it's just a regular plug like you'd use for your toaster. There is also the option, I could have had the option of getting a level 2 charger, which is more like the outlet for your dryer, so
Right.
more powerful, and that would charge my vehicle more quickly, so 2.5 hours. But I just didn't have the need for it, and I'm naturally fiscally cheap. So I was like, I'm not going to spend more money for the other one. Maybe at some point I will, and periodically the manufacturers offer rebates toward even the level 2 charging.
Okay. And if you do the level 1, how long does it take for it to charge up overnight?
If
Plenty
it's
of time?
completely dead, like if I've got 5 miles left, it could take a day and a half. Usually, I don't really run it out all the way. I might go for 10 miles or 20 miles and then come back and charge it up again at night.
Okay.
So it's full charge by the morning.
Okay. And so what happened to your home electricity bill?
It's gone up slightly, but not crazy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really not. It is. Granted, with gasoline being as cheap as it is right now, it's not as much of a difference as it would be when gasoline was $4 a gallon.
Right.
But it is still quite economical, and also there's much less maintenance costs. So there's no oil change, for
Right.
example. There's no spark plugs.
Okay.
Sort of other things.
And that's interesting because those are the things you don't think about. It's like, oh.
And I hated going to the gas station. It's just annoying. Now I have a gas station at my house every single night. And like I had to go to Worcester yesterday. There's a gas station right at the Worcester Union Station.
A charging
a charging
station.
station,
Right.
but a gas station.
Right.
And since it's still the early stages, much of the public charging out there is free. So thank you, Worcester, for covering my electricity charge that whole time. We have chargers at the Newton City Hall where I live. So it's a really great time to get in. There's really generous rebates. So the federal government offers a $7,500 tax credit. Even if you lease your vehicle like I do, you can still access that because it goes to, in my case, Nissan, and they pass along the savings to you. And then the state offers up to $2,500 of a rebate. They just changed it so that if you buy an expensive vehicle over $60,000, it's only a $1,000 rebate. But still, for most of us, if the car's under $60,000, it's $2,500. So I got a $30,000 car for $20,000.
That's That sounds
And
like a great deal.
The other thing with maintenance, I didn't think about it until after I had it. It's annoying to bring your car in. You know, it's just
For
annoying.
maintenance. Yeah, it's a lot of time and energy and calling and
exactly. So it's just.
So just one other question about that. How long have you owned this car?
I've owned it since June of last year.
Okay, and you have not had to go in for maintenance or anything?
Well, I signed up for it was like $5 a month. That every 6 months they realign everything. And I'm not a car person. I don't know what they do. Clean it all up and so they check it. But no, I haven't needed anything. It's a brand new vehicle. So I will say if you take a lot of road trips, it's. All battery is not the vehicle for you at this point.
Right.
We are
you
on the
take
early
a lot
stages.
of long road trips.
Yeah, I mean, even coming here, it was a little iffy. There's no charging really close by, public charging. So we rented a gasoline vehicle for today. I mean, possibly could have figured it out, possibly could have made it, but I didn't want to risk it. So it's not ideal yet.
Right. Okay.
So that's the kind of advocacy we do, is to try to get more charging out there, more education like this show, so that people know about them, because the more vehicles out there, the more demand for charging, the more easier it is to get the charging.
Right. And before the show, we were talking about where the charges were around here. We saw the one in Hanover. You said there's one in Brockton. But there's also a great map or a couple of different online tools. Can you say a little bit about that?
I mean, you can find it on a Google search pretty easily, but there's a lot of different places online that do the maps of the charging stations. I have an app on my phone called PlugShare. That has it has a lot of there's a few different manufacturers that do these charging stations. So PlugShare has them all on there. And it's just like Google Maps, and it's kind of like you have Google Maps on your phone, and it'll direct you. You just pop up on your phone, and they all pop up. And
GPS, what's the closest one?
The screen pops up, and they're littered all over the place. It's kind of cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one of them I looked at had even people's homes where they were charging. So
that's something you can do on PlugShare as well. So if say Emily wanted to offer up her outdoor outlet to other EV drivers when she's not home, she could put her outlet onto the PlugShare map as a user and offer it up when she's not home, and it would say whether it's in use or not, and they could drive into her if she was comfortable with that.
If you wanted.
They could park in her driveway.
Right.
But a lot of people do, and some people who have chosen to install the level 2 charger at their house when they're not home, if they're at work all day, they'll put it on the PlugShare app and they'll allow other people to use it. And then they use other people's, and it's all a big wash, and everyone's happy.
And it's just at the early stages of this. So as we go on and on, there'll be more and more charging stations.
Oh,
I
definitely.
know in other states like California, they have much more access to charging because they've been pushing electric vehicles for a while now. Oh, look at that. And we have it up online. There's an instance of some of the charging stations around here.
Very cool.
Yeah, so we need a lot more.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would like to give a plug, so to speak, to the Baker administration. That has been terrific. They continued the rebate program, which started under the last governor. They are looking at expanding the Green Communities program, which you may be familiar with, but that offers financial incentives to cities and towns to take certain measures for energy efficiency and energy reduction. It didn't historically include electric vehicles. They're going to add that for Green Communities 2.0. So that's something exciting that Whitman could look into. But it's been terrific being a Sierra Club person to see that that this governor has been so proactive and positive on electric vehicles, and understanding that we have to get more people not really promoting vehicles so much, but if you're going to use a vehicle, that it be electric, not petroleum powered.
Right. And so we touched on cost a little bit when you're saying something about rebates. Could you say a little bit more about what a car would cost, an electric vehicle to purchase? I know there's a range. We're not talking necessarily about Teslas, because I stopped there to see the Tesla station. There's a new store over at Derby Street in Hingham, and I just walked in to see what was over there to look at them, and they're quite expensive. So
coming out with a cheaper one though.
They are actually. In the next year or so, they're supposedly coming out with between a $30,000 to $35,000 model of their Tesla. I forget what they're calling
instead
it.
of the $100,000
instead of the
model.
$60,000 to $100,000 model, whatever that is.
So in general, for the average person who might want a new car and is looking at electric, and maybe touch on hybrid too, if you.
Sure. I mean, you're looking at anywhere with the rebates involved. You could be anywhere from 15 and 20 grand on the low end, up to $35,000 for the average consumer cars, like the sedan-sized ones, like you have a Chevy Volt or the Ford C-Max hybrid energy. There's a lot of them. I don't know if you want me to name all of them.
No, there's a lot. And I will say also, I work for an organization called American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy. And one of their sectors that they work on is transportation. And they have a website called greenercars.org. And on that website, every year they list the cars, they list the greenest, and they list the meanest. And then they list in between. And I just looked before I came here, and they have the 14 greenest cars. 8 of them were electric cars. Yep. And some of them were hybrids and other mixes. But that's another resource for people to look at. And it isn't always the fact that the car that's electric is going to be the most efficient, because when they do this, they look at the whole life cycle, and they're looking at how much emissions in your house from plugging it in. You know, you don't see the emissions from the coal plant or whatever that's
Although we're getting
from.
rid of coal in Massachusetts. So.
Yes.
Which is a big deal. So they are cleaner here than they would be in the Midwest or West Virginia, or somewhere that's much more still heavily powered by coal, although coal really is being transitioned away from all over the country.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
And even in Massachusetts right now, with the we have natural gas plants that produce our electricity as one source anyway. Even with the sources of electricity in Mass, any EV is going to be about 70 to 75% more efficient, because it uses its energy so much more efficiently than a combustion engine car does. So there's something to be said about where the electricity comes from, for sure. But pound for pound, they use their power a lot more efficiently.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyone who thinks, I want to be environmental, I recycle, I compost, I changed out my light bulbs, your next vehicle being electric should be on that list.
Right.
And they don't have to be all electric, just when I think you were asking. So the Chevy Volt, for example, it goes for a while on the battery, and when the battery runs out, as long as you have gasoline in the tank, it can keep going. So you could drive across the country in the Chevy Volt. I can't, unless I wanted to take a long time every 2 hours to charge up, and hopefully I could find something. But the Chevy Volt is just like a regular car. So that's something, like if you're a one-car family and you wanted to really, go electric, that would be one way to do it.
Right. Okay. And the other point I was getting to also was about cost. A lot of people care about cost. And when I looked at greenercars.org, you can plug in the car that you're thinking of buying, the electric car, compare it to your own car. So I was looking at a Chevrolet Spark, and I tried a Nissan Leaf, and it gives you the approximate savings per year. So for each of those cars, it was about $400 savings per year, just from the gasoline and the comparison.
And what were you putting for gasoline cost right now?
Right, so the gas is low right now, it's around $2. So if it inches back up, the savings will be even greater. So is there anything else you want to say about the economics of these choices?
I think that's right. That plus the maintenance costs are, especially when gas becomes more expensive, that is definitely a better way to go.
Yeah. Maintenance costs are, I think, a big piece of this too. I mean, if you have an electric motor, has very few moving parts, which means.
So what else doesn't it have? Are there no? What about belts? Is it?
Yeah, there's no. I mean, there's. I'm not a car expert, but there's no spark plugs. There's no alternator. There's a lot of less moving parts.
Right.
So you don't have to do oil changes.
Yeah, there's no nasty vehicle or liquids in there. I think just windshield wiper fluid.
Yeah, that's windshield wiper fluid, and I think that might be it. And maybe I don't even think it needs coolant, honestly. And then with regenerative braking, it's a lot less taxing on your brake pads, because it uses the momentum of the car to regenerate the battery sometimes when you're slowing down. So it makes your brakes last longer too, so you don't have to replace the pads as often. Right. It's a lot of things that when you start to add them up, it really becomes pretty economical.
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing I'm thinking about is we saw that map and how many charging stations there are around here, and we obviously want more than that. So what about any incentives, or if I'm an employer and I want to encourage my employees to drive electric vehicles, is there anything that we can do about encouraging that?
So the state offers incentives for workplace charging, up to 50% of the cost of installing charging for your employees. And it's actually a really, really great way to do it. There's data to show that once workplace charging is installed, then people who work there see it, they're reminded of it, it causes employees to start purchasing, then they see one another's, because just like anything else, a key way that people adopt a new innovation is when they see a friend or a relative or someone that they trust do
Right.
it, and then they talk to them about it and so forth. So that is also a big push for the state, for the Sierra Club, for the Department of Energy, has a big workplace charging program. So for those who are interested in doing that, they should definitely look into it.
And does it apply to towns where this is Whitman Hanson
Yep.
cable
Yep,
access? And so I'm
there's
thinking both
incentives
towns.
for municipalities, and like I said, the Green Communities program is likely, we don't know the timing, but to come out with a new round of funding for this. It's funny, once I was, it's really just the travel, because unless you live in a multi-unit where you don't have access to a garage or a driveway, and that is a more difficult situation. But if you are in a place where you have your own home, even if you're renting, if you have access to charge at home, that's fine. That's not an issue. The public charging is really for traveling, or if you don't have charging at home. And so once I owned one, it was more aware of where my kids play sports, so every now and then we'll have to go to URI or Carlisle or somewhere that I can't make it there and back, and so I wish the high schools had charging. So that's one thing I'm suggesting, is that we really incentivize folks to look at charging for high schools, because you have a lot of people go there. It's also workplace charging. A lot of people work at the high school.
People work there and students go there.
Yes.
I was actually at a high school recently, I think it was Marshfield High School, and there were signs out that said reserve parking spaces for electric vehicles. Have you seen that
Really?
happening
No.
also? You haven't
Have
seen
not
that
seen
before?
that,
Yeah.
no.
It was electric vehicles and
Did they have charging there as well, or just?
no, I didn't see charging. It was
okay.
just reserving spaces up front, which I think some students would probably like that. There's a big
Right.
competition at our high school for parking spaces. So, all right. So, what about on any other level, say policies? Is there any legislation happening?
Yeah, so we are advocating a couple things. There's a bill that I think will be voted out right now, today. Today's the day that all the bills get voted out. That would allow electric vehicles into HOV lanes, high occupancy vehicle lanes.
Oh, that's great. So
Right.
driving to Boston, you get to go in the
Right, just another incentive,
HOV lane.
we
if
really
you have an
want people to
electric vehicle.
buy
Okay.
these. And they would authorize municipalities to set aside preferential parking. It sounds like perhaps Marshfield just went and did it anyway, but it makes it clear that you can do that. It has a goal of 25% of the state fleet being electric vehicles by a certain date. It recommends a study for the regional transit authorities to see what more they can be doing to incorporate electric powered vehicles. So the Worcester RTA already has 6 electric buses in their fleet.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
That's another part of this, is what more we can do to get more buses to be all electric. Especially when you think about it, buses often go through low-income communities or communities of color where asthma rates are higher, and these have no tailpipe emissions. The cars, the battery only. The buses, the cars have no tailpipe emissions, so it's much better for air quality.
What about school buses?
There is a program, an incentive
That
program
seems
for
like a
school
natural
buses.
one where overnight you charge them up, they're sitting,
Yeah.
some of the other buses
And they
are
often
moving all the
idle.
time.
People don't really
Right.
think about it, but they idle near the schools sometimes.
Right.
So yeah, there is some incentive money for that as well. So these are all, it's a brave new world. But I tell people, these are not DeLoreans, these are not golf carts, these are not some freak vehicle. These are real vehicles, buses, cars that we can all be driving right now.
So another technology I saw recently, there's an article about a wireless charging station. So the picture was of a big, rectangle or square, and it's on the ground. It was in a garage, and you just drive up on top of it. You don't have to get out, unplug, or plug in, or do anything. And have you heard much about that?
I haven't heard much about it, but I have heard, words in the wind about people are really starting to look into that. Yeah, they're starting to figure out ways where you don't. It's wireless charging, so you don't have to touch it. You don't have to plug anything in. I think it takes a little bit of adaptation on the car maker's side, or on the battery side anyway, to enable the battery to charge wirelessly. But the technology's there, and they're working on it. So at a gas station, you might just be able to drive right over, sit there for a few minutes, get a little notification that you're done, and drive away.
Right.
So it's getting there, yeah.
And have you heard anything about competition for the charging spaces? I don't know if it's that popular here yet that,
Not the way we've heard about it in California.
Right, I've
but
heard
that would be a
people
great problem to have.
Right.
That would mean, there are so many vehicles that we are competing for them.
Right.
Another thing that we are working on is, you may be familiar that the utilities, our electric utilities, promote energy efficiency. They're really aggressive about that with the Mass Save program. Well, that's paid for by a surcharge on our electricity bills. A conversation that we are having and other folks are having is adding electric vehicles to that, because this really is a public policy good, just like energy efficiency. And the utilities are in every home, every business. They have relationships. So if they were to add, as they're talking to you about insulation and a new HVAC or a new boiler, if they're also saying, hey, company, would you be interested in installing workplace charging? We can help you with that. Or resident, have you ever considered purchasing an electric vehicle? We can help you with that. That would be pretty exciting, because a lot of the challenge is just the marketing and education, getting the word out about these vehicles, that people should take them seriously. The dealers are not necessarily where we would want them to be. Some are terrific, very knowledgeable, very proactive. Some, there's a lot of survey data to show that sometimes you can go in and the person purchasing the vehicle knows a lot more than the person who'd be selling them the vehicle.
Oh.
So to have more folks on the outreach and marketing and education side in the form of the utilities would be very helpful.
Okay. So we are getting to the end of the show, and I was just wondering if there's anything else you would like to say about the work that you're doing as an outreach.
Sure. We have a couple of other events that are a little bit more far off. Every year we do something called National Drive Electric Week. It's hundreds of events all across the country together with the Sierra Club National Organization, and anyone in their own community who wants to organize one can reach out to us or can sign up on the website, and we'll see them and reach out to them, and we can give them all the help they need to get one going in their own community.
Okay. And
that's my little pitch.
Okay, and if people do want to learn more about electric vehicles through the Sierra Club, what's the best way to do that?
I would say check out the National Sierra Club's electric vehicle, is it called a consumer guide? Electric vehicle guide? It's a lot of questions that will get answered if you go on there. You can put in how far you usually drive, what your needs for a car are, and they can tell you which electric car would best fit your needs.
Okay.
So that's very good tool out there, yeah.
And say that again,
It's the Sierra Club's Electric Vehicles Guide on the
and
national.
it's sierraclub.org?
Sierraclub.org. And then our website is sierraclub.org/Massachusetts.
Okay. And is there anything else you would like to add about?
Thank you so much. We'd love to hear from people in the area if they want to, on electric vehicles or anything else environmental that we're working on. We're working on a lot, so thank you so much for having us.
Okay, and just a word or two about your, you've talked a lot about your car and anything else.
Anyone who wants a ride.
You'll
have to come a little closer to Newton so far to be able to get a test drive, but I don't want to go back to gasoline.
You're done.
Yes. I'm trying to get my husband, when he gets his new vehicle, to get a Volt. So we'll see.
All right. So thank you both for being here today. It's been great to shed a little light on the electric vehicle market and what it's like, and the pluses, and there are some minuses about the long distances. Yeah, challenges is a good way to say it.
Yeah.
But it's been great to have you, and I'll just end by saying that if you want more information, check out the sierraclub.org. The other resource that I mentioned was greenercars.org. You can, and that has more than just electric vehicles. And I would also say to try to just keep a look at any legislation or pieces of legislation that are passing, and urge your legislators to move forward with that, because it takes everyone moving in the same direction. So thank you for being here today, and I look forward to our next show.